Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. I see we already have 25 of us present, and it's not even 5 o'clock yet. These are the early birds. I just want to welcome you. You can begin to just introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us get to know where you are joining us from. We will be kicking off in exactly 2 minutes. Good afternoon. Welcome. Very good to see us all joining from different parts of this country and beyond. Welcome to this webinar. Again, for those just streaming in, please do just introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us know who you are. Let us know where you're joining us from. We're very excited that you could join us. My name is Kezi Mokiri, and I am going to be co-hosting this together with my friend Irene Mureithi, who will shortly also introduce herself. But we're very excited to be joining you. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Once again, introduce yourself in the chat box. Let's make those connections. Let's get to know one another. You are invited to post your questions in the Q&A box. This is an interactive webinar. We'll be having a great session of question and answer, lots of interaction. We welcome you to post your questions. Let us get our questions answered. Let us brainstorm. Let us get to know what is it that you want to know concerning today's topic. Later on in the course of this webinar, we will be giving a special gift to somebody very special today. If today is your birthday, if you're celebrating a birthday today or you're celebrating an anniversary, post it for us on the chat box, and Irene and I will be able to pick it up, and the first person to do so, we will be giving you a really special book, and we will let you know what that will be in the chat box shortly. So thank you very much. Welcome, enjoy this session. I will invite Irene Mureithi to quickly introduce herself and then to welcome Sally Mahihu, who is the host of today's webinar.
Thank you, Kezi. Thank you, everyone. It's good to have you here. And our panelists and our host, Sally Mahihu, you all look so lovely. And we can't wait to learn from you and from your years of experience. Today's topic, your calling and positioning, is key to every one of us. And congratulations for commanding your mountains. We look forward to hear from you. So we welcome all that are joining us from different parts of the country. We can see that in the chat. And without much ado, I want to hand over the meeting to our host, Sally Mahihu. Welcome. Sally, please unmute.
There we go. Thank you, Irene, and thank you, Kezi. I see our panelists. I see Carol, I see Wandia. I don't see Akinyi yet. I hope she's logging in. But once again, welcome to this conversation. I call them conversations because I sincerely desire that we interact. And as we said before, they are based on the books I launched recently. Today's is launched on the book on your calling and your positioning. And having said that, it is good to hear from the attendees, and of course from the panelists, because what is in my book is just a tip of what else there could be. And that's what I want us to explore and hear. So today our conversation is on commanding your mountain. This is basically about being able to locate. I think commanding your mountain entails three things. It entails locating your mountain or your sphere of influence or your place of purpose and assignment. It also means identifying the strengths within you and what you have within you to be able to operate on that mountain or in that sphere and place. And thirdly, it also means being able to recognize that in that sphere, mountain, and place where you've legitimately been ordained and called to has got enemies, it has elements, it has forces that will fight you, that will hinder you, that will obstruct you. And to the extent that you're able to slay every giant on that mountain, in that sphere, is to the extent you can then say you're commanding that mountain. You've become a voice on that mountain, a voice of influence, that even when the government wants people to give policy papers to ask them, what should we do? How should we legislate with regard to this particular sector? What do you feel are the problems? They should be able to call on you. They should be able to say, so-and-so is a voice on this particular mountain, so we know she has what it takes and she's able to contribute. And even more than that, that even long after you've gone as a part of your legacy, we're able to look back and say, what impact and on what mountain did so-and-so leave? So that's a conversation we're going to have today. And for those who may not know, there are 7 mountains of influence in any society or sphere. And they're commonly known as the mountain of politics and governance, the mountain of economy and business, the economy of media, the mountain of media, the mountain of arts and entertainment, the mountain of education, the mountain of family, and the mountain of religion or church to you and I. And within those mountains are sub-mountains, and each and every one of us is ordained or born or created to be on one of those mountains or sub-mountains and be able to operate there and become a voice of positive influence and even a voice of positive change. And a couple of things about your mountain, your place and your sphere is that place, once you've located it, once you've positioned yourself there, once you're operating there, when you're on the right mountain, you thrive and excel. When you're on the wrong mountain, wrong sphere, wrong industry, wrong place of assignment, you will wither and fail. Basically, it's as simple as that. Why? Because you are anointed or let's say talented or skilled or gifted and endowed for a particular mountain. And when you're there, and you're graced for it as well. And that's why you will excel and thrive in your mountain. But when you're not in your mountain, then you don't have all what you need to operate with. You don't even have, in your right mountain, you also have let's call it the anointing to slay the giants. If I operate in the wrong mountain where I'm not called, I don't have the anointing to slay the giants there. That's why I'll end up withering and failing. So it's very important for each and every woman of destiny to locate her mountain. And as I said, you have the gifting, the gracing to flow in that mountain. Now, the other thing about your mountain or sphere is that there are 2 fundamentals. There are things there that will help you. That's what's within you, the skills, the gifting, the anointing, the endowment, and the resources you will find on those mountains. Because God is not a God of confusion. If he sends you there, he will make sure there's provision for you on that mountain. It may not come immediately, of course. He may want to test your heart. There'll be protection, there'll be grace, there'll be an ability to flow in that mountain. And then secondly, there'll be, as I said, obstacles, things that will seek to fight you. And we're going to get into these as we get into the conversation. And lastly, second lastly is your mandate on your mountain or your sphere or place of assignment is to literally make a difference. Remove the bad and put the good. Remove the corruption and bring the justice. It's basically to discern everything that's wicked and wrong on that mountain, to fight it, come against it, eradicate it, and instill what's right. Then we can call you a voice in that mountain to that extent. And the last thing is for you to conquer that external mountain, whatever mountain you're called to, for you to conquer it, command it, and really literally, we can call your voice on that mountain, you have to first conquer the mountain within you. And we'll also discuss that. And the mountain within you basically are the subtle dysfunctions, the issues, the fears, the insecurities. There are issues within us, mountains within us, that will hinder us from effectively commanding our external mountain. So we're going to talk about that as well. So let's go straight to our panelists, and because I want to give them a lot of time. And these are women I honor and respect. I chose them deliberately, intentionally, purposefully, by design and not by default, because I personally admire what they've done on their mountains. I admire the passion they have, the milestones they've made on those mountains. And to that extent, for me, they're women who are also humble, women who are humble enough to relate to the rest of us, to relate even to the woman who says, I don't know where my mountain is. I don't know, please tell me, please help me to know whether I'm in business, media, arts. And today, as you can see, we have only 3 of the mountains, because I wanted us to have enough time to thrash out these 3 mountains. Next time, we're going to have the other 4 mountains: education, family, church, and I think the other one, yeah, whatever it is. But for today, we're going to have those 3. So first and foremost, we're going to invite Wandia Gishuru. And I'm not even going to say what she is, what she does, because she'll tell us herself. Sometimes we fail in seeking to describe or profile somebody. So I'll allow her to introduce herself beyond that and answer the questions I sent. The first question, only one, dear. The question I sent to you, please respond to that question. Take your time I gave you on that question and go ahead, take it from there, one, dear. Karibu.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. Hi, everyone. I can see there's like over 70 people, and I don't know why I'm feeling a bit nervous, but anyway, I think it's been a long time. You know, we've all been locked up in our various little spaces, but Sally, thank you. Thank you for always inviting me to be part of your community and participating in important conversations like this one. I think, like a lot of people, I felt quite disconnected over the last year with everything that's been going on, and just operating in survival mode, just trying to stay afloat. So I think having you ask these kind of questions, it just gives us a chance to step back and look at things from a different perspective, which is really welcome, to remind ourselves sort of why we do what we do and why it's important to stay committed to our paths and our journeys. So I had to ask myself a lot of questions. I had to reread your parts of your book again, which I've really, really enjoyed. So if I had to summarize what I believe my calling is, I would say that it's around building and strengthening local brands, African brands, especially in the retail space. And I think the thing that excites me the most about it is the opportunities that exist to create incredible value and also to create a lot of opportunities. And here I'm talking specifically about jobs. I think we're probably one of the only regions left in the world where we outsource our dressing. You know, 90% of or more of what Kenyans wear was not ever made with us in mind. We didn't design it, we didn't manufacture it. Most of the time, we didn't even buy it new, as we know. It was a lot of what people wear was worn by somebody else until they got tired of it, and they literally sort of handed it over to a charity who then sold it to a logistics company, and it ends up in our markets. I'm not going to get into the Mitumba discussion because I know it's quite a complicated one, and I do believe there is still need for it, but we cannot allow it to just completely kill any other opportunities in fashion. There is definitely enough room for there to be local fashion brands, beauty brands, accessory brands, and you know, we've done the math, and we have been able to demonstrate that the amount of jobs that will be created when you support a local brand and the amount of taxes, and the taxes that the revenues that the government will get. Jobs will be about 16 times more jobs, and revenue to the government will be about 20 times more. So it's a very big debate. So when I listened to your questions, I thought about them. I'm like, so what are the giants that that I personally have come across in this journey? I would say I can think of three in particular. I think the first one, which was much earlier on in the journey, was around the perception to do with locally made products. And as recently as 8 years ago, when we first started to design and make locally, some people said to some of our customers and friends and whatever, said, don't tell anybody that it's local because they may not buy it. Because people at that point were still saying local fashion is not as good, the quality is not as good. I am very happy that that perception has changed dramatically. I truly believe there is a lot more support for buy local, support local, and especially with younger generations. They don't even have that concept. I think they're too far away from the colonialists to even think that something that came from outside has to be better. So that definitely has changed, and that giant, I think, has mostly been slayed. A second giant is, I believe, and this is particularly within those in the fashion community, designers, is one of a bit of scarcity and fear. And I think that has prevented us from really collaborating and coordinating, sharing information, working together. And my own view on that is, a rising tide will raise all ships. And so by helping somebody else, we're just lifting for everybody. The bigger giants are all those external factors. We still don't even take up 5% of the market. So let's not fight each other to do better. And again, I think that giant is slowly being slayed. Akini, who's on this panel, is the wonderful chair of the Kenyan Fashion Council, which is really doing amazing work. And we're seeing a lot more collaboration, a lot more coordination. So I think that's amazing. I think the last dragon that I would mention in terms of the industry is within the bigger sector. So it's not so much the fashion people, but within the textile sector as a whole, it has been sort of coordinated from a policy point of view and everything else by a very small group of people, typically not women, typically not African women. And typically the people who dominate that discussion have been people who represent the factories that make fabric. And they have an important role to play, but unfortunately the conversation has not evolved to allow a broader conversation around the opportunities for fashion manufacturing and retail, because there is not enough locally made fabric to support the fashion industry. So we need to be able to bring fabric in, import fabric, not to compete with the ones that are being made locally, but to be able to bring in chiffons and satins, things that have not been made and won't be made locally for a very long time. But that fighting that dragon, and maybe Akini will add to that conversation, has really been, that's still a giant that we're trying to get around. And what you were saying around being at the table, so we're, I'm the deputy chair of the subgroup that deals with policies around this issue within the Kenyan Association of Manufacturers. We have had discussions with the Office of the President, but it goes round in circles. Within the sector, we are speaking with different languages and we're asking for different things. So even amongst ourselves, we don't go with one voice. So that's still a big challenge. Other than those three, what I would say is my other bigger giants are the ones inside me, the ones I keep having to slay, the ones that, and they say two different things. Sometimes they're telling me I'm not good enough. And then other times they're telling me, when perhaps I feel criticized or whatever, they're telling me, who are all these people to tell me to criticize me? So it's either I'm not good enough or I'm too good to be criticized. And I think both are very unhealthy. I think the these unhealthy sides of our egos, either being too insecure or feeling too arrogant, are the things that can really hold us back. I think, like you say in your book, despite the haters, there are always those destiny helpers.
Yeah.
And even the giants are there to teach us something.
Yeah.
Even the
Yeah.
haters are there to teach us something. And if anything, at least they force us to try and ask ourselves, how badly do we want this? Do we want it bad enough to try and slay that thing that's in the way? And I feel like, in a way, COVID has been one of those giants, because it has pushed us and pressured us and taken us to places we've never even imagined. And the fact that we're still here, we're still fighting, we're still trying our best. For me, in 10 years of running Vivo, this last year has definitely been the hardest year. It has been the first year that we've had to close shops. We've had to put people on pay cuts. I mean, there are things that we had never seen, up until now. And it is easy to want to give up. And I think for anyone listening who's in business and has had a tough time, which is the majority of us, I think the fact that we're still working on it and pushing means we will overcome it. And the two quotes that I think really resonated from the chapter in your book is one by Theodore Roosevelt, which is do what you can with what you have, where you are.
Yes.
Because for us, that kind of mindset has really, as a team, has really helped us remind ourselves, yes, there are all these challenges, but can we not forget what we have?
Yes.
We have our minds, we have our creativity, we have our talent, we have our experience, we have our relationships, our networks, we have each other, we have time. It's so easy to just focus on everything that's lacking and what's been taken away. And I think remembering what you have. And then the second quote was the Wayne Dyer one, which says, abundance is not something you acquire, it's something you tune into. So it's a mindset, and it's so easy to go into that scarcity mindset, and to just remain abundant is, for me, the way that I can still find the energy to get up in the morning.
Yes.
So I hope I answered the question.
Yes, you did, Wandia. In fact, you said something very, very important, yeah? And first of all, thank you for pointing out the role you're playing in terms of engaging the government. That's what I was looking for, in terms of what voice are you? What kind of a voice are you? Are you helping shape that industry, change for the better, make it easier for other people to come on and do business? But you also mentioned your two inner mountains, the insecurity, not knowing whether you're good enough, and the paradoxical one of like not being able to take criticism easily. Thank you. That was very brave. But I want you to go a bit into it, because you're not the only one among us, even those attending, who may be struggling with those two issues of insecurity, not knowing whether you're good enough in what you're doing, constantly losing confidence, and the not being able to take criticism very well. Where do you think that stems from, Wandia, and how are you fighting it? Because remember, I told you, to the extent you fight these giants within you is to the extent you're able to conquer the external giants. So what are you doing about that? How do you think you came to walk in that? What do you think caused that?
So I think many of us have a not good enough story. For most of us, I think it comes from somewhere in our childhood. It's, from a very young age, it could be that you didn't get the full amount of attention. With myself, I didn't have a close relationship with my father, and not because he was mean, but because he was absent. He was mostly outside of the home, and he didn't really engage. And so I think there's always been a bit of a hole where, especially when it comes to my relationships with men, where I'm always insecure. And some of the ways that, and then it plays out, so it plays out in sometimes the stories I tell myself, especially when I feel a bit disappointed. If, often when someone lets us down, it's not about us. It's actually about that other person. But because of your own stories, you start to imagine that, oh, maybe they don't like me anymore. I mean, just even this week, I had a friend that I had tried to call her twice over the last 2 weeks. She never responded. And then finally she called me and I said, have I done something? Is something wrong? Some of these things, we get older, but we don't necessarily, kill these things completely. And she laughed and she's like, my God, not at all. I've just been so busy. And, so what I've realized is, they say the difference between animals and humans is our ability to imagine, which it's a fantastic thing, because it's what allows us to think about something that doesn't exist and to be creative and innovative. That's the good part. On the other hand, it also can destroy us, because it can make us have all these stories in our mind that aren't necessarily helpful, and kind. And so what I've tried to do is question my thoughts. Ask myself, are these really true thoughts? Am I making these things up? Is it helpful for me to think this?
Yes.
And so it's a lot of self-awareness. I do a lot of, I have coaches, I have mentors, I have friends who I can be very honest with, who will help me break down those myths and stories.
Yeah.
And over time, I think you learn not to always assume it's about you, because very often it isn't. So those are some of the things I do.
Thank you, Andia, for being so honest, because we're all in the making. And I think what happens, and what I've watched even in myself and other women who have what it takes by the grace of God, but we don't think we do. So we don't operate at the optimum many times, because there's always that something telling us, it's like the imposter syndrome. I remember one time, Evelyn Mungai, when I was among the list invited to her book launch, because according to the list, I was among the leading ladies making a difference. And I kept telling my husband, I think they made a mistake. Maybe they're talking about another Sally. And even when I went, I was still sitting, almost hiding behind the lady in front of me, because something kept telling me, you haven't really reached to be among these ones. And I watched the giants around me. But who's to tell me that that's not what others see? And the point I'm making here, Wandia, is that often, and even to the attendees listening, is that we need to really overcome that. We need to overcome that feeling of we're not good enough, and hindering us from making even more strides and more milestones in our various mountains of influence, based on that erroneous ground, that misconception that we're not good enough, yeah? And I like what you're saying. Your friends affirm you, they speak to you, and you've said where it came from. It's true. Last week I was telling them that there's a part of me that is very confident, because I was a daddy's girl and I was affirmed every day. So for the first time I came across people who didn't like me, I was shocked. I mean, what is there not to like about me? I was shocked people didn't like me. Those who didn't like me, because I'd always been so loved and so accepted and affirmed. So I want the women to hear that, and to know it's a deliberate working on it, to work on it, to be self-aware, first of all, to be aware of it. And I always say one of the most important characteristics is being aware of your areas of weaknesses and being able to address them and deal with them, yeah? Thank you so much for that. On the mountain of business, Wandia, and economy, it is universally known or said that some of the other giants or things that are not good on that mountain is greed. There's greed for what we call mammon, greed for money. There's an excessive greed for money, not just to make money to use properly on yourself, your family, and society, but just a ridiculous greed, an obsession, where people just want to amass wealth. It's one of the giants, one of the evil things there on that mountain. And also materialism, if you would, materialism. People get lost in the values. They forget what are the true values, and they get caught in materialism. And also unfair trade practices. Obviously, there's corruption, bribery, all manner of issues in that mountain. And exploitation, there's those three are some of the major giants or evil things on that mountain of business that universally are known. Have you come across them? And how have they affected you personally? And what are you doing about them?
Yeah, maybe I choose not to see them in a way, because I think in the spirit, well, in the area of greed, maybe what I would say is it's very important that people try to price right. And I think the market will correct you when that's wrong, because you'll find over time, you'll just create a demand for a product that somebody else will come in and be able to offer for half the price because you were being, you were overcharging. So I'm not saying that Vivo is the cheapest brand out there, but we try to price it at a point where there's value for what you're getting.
Yes.
There are brands that are offering far better value in terms of, they're using pure silks, it's handmade, it's custom to your size. So, there's definitely products and brands that are highly priced and are value for money because of what you're getting. But there are times that I see people, and I remember when we used to import, and we would bring products from Bangkok and places like that, and other brands would bring the exact same products, but they're charging twice the price. And I just used to wonder, how long is that going to survive?
Yeah.
And what you're realizing now is, because there's such a wide range to choose from, there's so many small businesses that are on Instagram or Facebook and whatever, and they may not have the overheads of a shop, of a lot of salaries, and their price points are being more and more and more competitive. And I think it's wonderful. So I think the greed thing, ultimately, the market will put you into place. I think on the corruption and things like that, definitely with a lot of illegal imports, with people not paying taxes, it's there. It's in all our sectors. And there's, of course, you try, and those are the conversations that we continue to try and have, even within the sector, with the government or whatever. But my feeling is, you can't stop doing what you're trying to do and waiting for that to be fixed. Unfortunately, you can do your part to try and change that, but you also have to just keep building your business, keep giving people reasons to come to you. And what you'll find is you can still compete even against those people being corrupt. If you're offering something that the market really likes and people will respond to, they will still come. They will still come to you. So it's there for sure. I don't think in the long run that it will pay off as well, because eventually even the thing that is protecting you, the government will change, the people will change, and suddenly you might find yourself on the wrong side, and it won't be worth it, So whether it's from a principle point of view or a religious moral point of view, or just from common sense, the sooner that you clean everything up and do things properly, I think you'll sleep at night and your business will still be able to grow.
Good. Thank you. Wandia, because I'm asking you this because we see you now as a mentor, okay? You're going to mentor other people other women coming into that sector. Somebody may say, I feel that's my mountain and I want to go into this aspect of it. Tell me, what should I look out for? How do I avoid being bribed? How do I make sure I don't exploit my workers? How do I make sure I don't get greedy when I really start making profits? How do I control that? And you've said it very well in terms of there's the legislation and there's a market, but it's really more personal in terms of character, because if people want to ignore even that legislation. So I'll come back to you later on that, because I'd like, it's good for the women to know what they're up against. What are you likely to face when you get here? And how, from one who is already there, how should they approach it and deal with it? Thank you, Andia. Always a pleasure. I'll come back to you later. Now I'm going to go to Akinyi. Akinyi, welcome, karibu sana. And as I said to Andia, we also see you as a voice on the mountain of arts, the mountain of fashion specifically. I think you and I, Akinyi, have had conversations in the past when I've told you, to me, you're a giant in that sphere. I see it. I've told you every year, I see it. You're a voice. I see your passion. I see your input. I see the inroads you make, and one can see you're thriving. Remember I said one of the key things to know whether it's your mountain, it's a thriving and the excelling and the visibility. I mean, you find people like you and Wandia being called for interviews, being called to do articles. It's a sign that we recognize you on that mountain, yeah? So Akinyi, I want to ask you as well, what challenges now in your fashion industry? Tell us what challenges you have encountered. What have you found on that mountain? You're speaking to other women, remember, who want to know. They feel they have this gift, they have this call, and they would want to go there. What are the challenges you faced and how did you overcome them? on that mountain of fashion and arts. We can't hear you. We still can't hear. There, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Sally. Indeed, our journey has been from a long time. You've been my client.
Yes, yes.
And we've traveled the journey together, and you've been such an integral part of my growth. You know, sometimes when I've shared with you a number of my challenges a while back, and I was crying, and you're like, just keep going, keep going. And it's been a privilege. The challenges that I've been able to face are many, And one of the things that I want to just advise all women who are watching, or anybody else who is on this platform, is that sometimes when you get into a space, one needs to recognize that there exist other people in that space.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, that's
so
good.
that you don't think that you're the only one in that space.
Yes.
And also wanting to learn. And one of the things that also stood out for me as I was getting into the fashion space was that the people who are already doing the business before you, they tend to feel a bit, I would say, insecure, or they wouldn't give you space to be closer to them, or even to ask them questions, because either someone thinks you want to copy them, or what is your intention. So there's a lot of you know, doubts, and a lot of somebody, what does she really want from me? You know, because I think we've been in African culture, we've grown in a space where we don't share much. You know, it's me, mine, and myself. You know, so whenever someone comes to me, I'm like, what does she want from me? Because we don't easily sometimes give. You know, so and for me that was a very strange experience that I could find, that you want to get into, there's so many fashion shows or so many fashion events, you want to be part of it, you're young, you want to get into it, but you can't penetrate through it, because there's this wall that has been created with those who've already been there. So by the time you break that wall, I mean, you've really, really worked hard. And then I realized that was frustrating me for a long time. It really frustrated me because you want to be, you know, you want to be part of that, but there's no space for you to get in. Yes. And then you get so frustrated that sometimes you want to give up. But given that I'm a Christian, I had to go back to, what does the word of God say? You know, I think everything that I have is within me, you know, so I had to start looking within myself and say, what is it that I have as a Kenyan? What is it that I need to do differently so that it can attract the clientele that I needed? So I realized I actually don't need to be in that circle first, but I just need to create my own space and build it. Right. Then naturally, the wall will get lighter, and I'll be able to penetrate through the wall, because it's now through my work that the wall broke, you know. And then you realize, oh my God, this is what it takes for the wall to break. And once the wall has broken, what do you do? I learned that it was so difficult to break into the market, and to break into, you know, have clients who are able to give you an order and you deliver. And just, I like what you say, because it's about your integrity, your work ethics. What do you want? What are you doing? Are you doing the right thing? Are you pricing it right? And if your prices are higher and the client feels that it's high, are you explaining to the client why it is higher? You know. You know, because there's a number of aspects that make your product maybe is pricier than somebody else. So I found these were very important in building my business. And once I was then, I kept growing my business slowly, step by step, building it from, you know, borrowing money was not easy. I had to, I was a tailor, everything for myself. And you see, when you realize that it's now working and you've learned some of the lessons along the way, I felt that there's need to go and mentor others. You know, I said that, God, you know, whatever I have gone through in this process, I wouldn't want any younger designer to go through it. How am I able to go back and hold somebody's hand? And through that, then I was able to come up with Fashion Agenda Africa, where I was able to now, you know, bring in younger designers, mentor them, and show them the way, this is the way it is done. When they tell you this is the challenge I'm facing, I said, I've been there before. You can be able to approach it this way. And again, as that was going on, it reached a point I'm thinking, oh my God, in this country, can't we have a body? Can we have a body that represents the fashion designers? Why should we work in silos? Why should we work in in different, cliques or groups, So it was such a tough, a tough order. And again, I started saying I had to reach out to, sometimes it takes a bolder person to stand up and say, let's do this. And there were many people who were telling me, Akinyi, it has never been done before. Who do you think you are? Sometimes people even ask, where are you from? Which it's which family? Sometimes nobody knows your father.
Yes.
And then people would ask me, what bold, where are you getting the boldness? And who will even follow through this? And it wasn't a walk in the park. And in 2016, I think when Fashionomics was launching Fashionomics in Kenya, Kenya was the first country that was launching. And we found ourselves as designers, over 300 designers in a room, AFDB Bank in Upper Hill. And they were asking us, which is the body that regulates the fashion industry? And we realized there's none. And then can you people create a body so that we are able to work with the body, since we can't work with an individual? And they're asking, who is going to be responsible? I raised my hand. I was like,
yeah.
And of course, I did that very afraid, very. And I didn't know how it's going to work. I had to start approaching, designers who've been there before, younger design. And there was a need. There was a need to actually just come together, as Wandia was saying, working together and speaking with one voice.
Yes.
And it's such a difficult thing in the art space, in the creative industry. Everybody, you're passionate about your creative and your creation, and you just want to keep it for yourself. You don't want anybody in your space. And long story short, we can now say that we have a fashion council, which I am the chair. And I'm very hopeful that the future generation will be able to take up space and join into the leadership, because sometimes God places some people to bear the vision. And as I read your book, there's in a chapter, there's the birthing and the cutting of the cord.
Yes.
So time has come when I recognize that, yes, you got the vision. You're pregnant with the baby. The baby has to be birthed, and the process of birthing the baby, the cord has to be cut.
Yes.
And it's a painful process when you're cutting. It's a painful process to cut the cord. Yes, it is important that the baby should be let to grow.
Exactly.
And feed themselves. Yes. And probably find other people who are able to take over and feed the baby, and take care of their aunties, their uncles, their grandfathers. So I think that's the place where I am right now. Even as I also build my own brand. And one of the things that I also just want to say, that just getting again from your book, sometimes you think that where God has called you is that particular thing that you're doing. God sometimes uses something as a stepping stone to the next thing.
That's right.
And you feel that time has come when I can't do this thing anymore because I need to go to the next step. Exactly. That sometimes will be able to help the baby that you actually let to grow on their own.
Yes.
I hope I've been able to answer you there.
You have, Akinyi, you have. And I love, when I was writing that chapter about birthing, steps to birthing your purpose and your vision, I thought I was the only one understanding it. I kept rewriting it because I thought women must get this. That's why I used the analogy of a physical baby, a physical pregnancy. Sometimes I even thought I was getting a bit too explicit when I was saying there has to be intimacy, there has to be impregnation, but there's no other way to explain about it. And as you have said, in fact, when I wrote the section about the cording, it took me so long because I had it, I could see it, what I wanted to say about it, that there has to be a cutting of the cord like a physical baby. That you don't walk around with the baby after you birthed it and with the cord that you're carrying the cord and you're carrying the baby. There has to be a separation. There has to be a time when you release what you have birthed to be a blessing to the rest of the society and to the rest of the world without emotional attachments that kill that baby. Even with physical babies, sometimes when we're too, we suffocate them and we don't want them to go and be a blessing to the society or elsewhere. So I'm just excited that you got that chapter. Honestly, that was my most difficult chapter, but I knew once the women get that chapter, the impact it will have and the way they'll be able to relate to it. I thank God for that. Now, the other thing you've said that's so important, and as I told Wandia, we'll come back to that. These are the things you find in your mountains when you get there. The old guard, the famous old guard, the old girls club or the old boys club. These are people you find already established in a place. The old priesthood, if you want, and they don't want anybody new coming to bring new ideas, innovations. We've always done it this way. Who do you think you are? That's a real issue in any, even in politics, in education, in any sector. When the new people coming in, the innovators, there's always that old guard. And it's one of the things I've talked about in my book a lot, about how to deal with the old guard that you find in the industry wisely, because they still have some power, they still have leverage. You can't be unwise about it and just dismiss them like that. You need to approach them in a very wise way, like David approached Saul, if you like, in the Bible, and ultimately came out stronger. The other thing you've talked about is, and that's why you're a voice on your mountain, Akinyi, because you understood, and as Wandia also said, the need for grouping, the need to see the bigger picture. It's not just about MEFA creations, just about you and your workshop and your business and me and mine. A visionary, you're visionaries. Carol, you and Wendy, you're visionaries. And that's why you see the need for the bigger picture, to bring people together, to drive the agenda as a group, as a society, and as a nation ultimately, because it's always, there's greater milestones that way. And people work together. Two are better than one, the Bible says. So I just wanted to confirm to you and encourage, that's why you're a voice on your mountain, because of having even that burden and that revelation that you needed to get into groups and speak as a voice, because you'll always be more powerful. You'll even defeat the giants better when you're a group, when like you and Wandia, you're heading these organizations, so you're able to fight as a group instead of a lone voice. I like what you said, that when women rise up and they have a voice, and or even anybody, even men, there's always somebody who will say, Kwani, who is she? Whose daughter is she? Where is this boldness coming? Who is backing her? Where's the Godfather behind this voice? Tell them it is God, Akinyi. It is God. God is the one who actually burdened you and pushed you to have that courage to arise. You know, you didn't have to be the daughter of so-and-so to do that. I like that. And Wandia earlier talked of some challenges sometimes in sourcing products. And I know also it's related to funding. It's not easy. Funding and capital is always a problem in any mountain when you're trying to start. So I know that's an issue that most of our attendees here will identify with, yeah? The other thing is your gift will make a way for you. You realized instead of trying to penetrate this old guard, instead of trying to be relevant, you decided, let me do my part. Let the talents within me, you clearly were gifted for what you are doing. You had the talents and the gifting and the skills. And all that needed to do is do what you do. And that gift spoke to you eventually. It opened the doors for you. So I want to encourage the women. Sometimes you're trying to get into petroleum, into oil, into gas. You're trying to get into cryptocurrency, whatever, these areas that have got godfathers and cartels, you know, and you can't. And I always say, if you really feel the burden and the calling and the anointing for it, let it speak. Start doing what you can. Start using your company to do those transactions. Your gift, what is God given in you to excel in that mountain will come out, and people can't ignore it anymore. You can't be ignored beyond that because of the gifting in you. So thank you very much. I'm going to come back to you, Akinyi, later, because we're going to talk about some of the elements I've put in my book about that are traps. They're snares and they're traps. Snags and snares, I call them in my book. When you're on your mountain, when you settled, you began to become a voice, your inroads, there's the cushiness of a comfort zone. You begin to get comfortable and you don't want to excel. You don't want to move beyond that. And then there is the conspiracy of compromise, where you're a voice and you're really, really a voice, and we see it. But sometimes there's compromise that comes our way, and how to fight that compromise. So your values, your ethics, what you stand for on that mountain is not compromised. And also the temptations of the king's meat. There is always, some people can be called to State House. Wadia said they had gone to State House, but I know she didn't need to galley there. She went to fight for the rights of the women on the mountain business. But there are others who go the king to eat his meat, but they don't come out with benefits or gains for the other people on that mountain. So it's a challenge for us that when you're a voice, when you go to the king, don't just eat the meat and get tempted, and come out with benefits for us, yeah? And then the other thing is there's idolatry, when it becomes an idol, when your business becomes an idol, when your art, Akinyi, becomes an idol, when we lose the bigger picture. That is something as you mentor the other women, you need to tell them, be careful this thing doesn't become an idol. You don't start worshiping this thing. It's beyond, it's not about that. There's more than that. And it's an impact and an influence. And sometimes there's a false sense of security when you feel you're okay. You don't fear the giants. You haven't identified the giants. You haven't bothered to check what are the giants in your mountain. You're sitting there making inroads, and they can vermeer you before you know it. So there has to be an awareness that there are giants, there's obstacles, there's forces that will fight you on that mountain so that they don't catch you unaware. And then there's the arrival mentality. When you feel umefika, you're on top of the mountain. My friend, Dr. Hatta, the author of this book, The Mountain Within, a very good friend of mine, talks about when she climbed the mountain that made her write this book, that when you get to the top of the mountain, there's mountain disease. You can get a mountain sickness once you're at the top. If you stay too long at the top of the mountain, relaxing and resting, there has to be, I've accomplished the top of the mountain. And my point, Akinyi, is to tie with what you said. Sometimes God is saying, move on. You've done what you've done here. You've accomplished what I wanted you to accomplish. You've handed over the baby. Now I'm calling you for greater challenges. Don't die on the mountaintop. Don't die on the mountaintop. You know, there has to be, don't have that arrival mentality, Nimefika, Zuba, it's over. There's always greater challenges for us. There's always international. I know you've gone international, Akinyi. There's always international. There's always, beyond being a voice on the mountain of business in Kenya, the mountain of media in Kenya, my challenge to be a voice in the international business mountain and in the international media mountain, in the international fashion industry. Let's hear you speaking at the UN and speaking, you know, that's what we're made for. That's what we're called for at the end of the day. So beware of the arrival mentality and the seduction with strings attached. There'll always be some kind of temptation to be seduced, you know, offers that come to even for, I'm glad, like if you're heading a group, and sometimes when you're negotiating for the rights of your mountain and groups, and there's some strings attached that come as seductive strings attached that could mess the whole group up. And we're called to be wise and to guard against that, because there'll always be forces. The minute you're a voice, the minute you're making inroads, you're making a positive change, you're a target. You're a target for the enemies of change, the enemies of good, who want the mountain to remain corrupt and wicked and evil and unethical. Thank you so much for that. Now, I want us to go to Carol, to my friend Carol, because today we really want, Kezi and Irene are waiting to really do a nice interactive discussion session. And today I promised them I'm gonna give them time to do that. So Carol, you, as I told you when I was inviting you, I choose you for the mountain of media because I haven't known you anywhere else. I've known you in media, I've known you in talk show, I've known you in editing, I've known you writing articles, I've known you as a media person, I've known you for that. And every time we've interacted, it's been on that platform more than on any other platform, even as I know you're a mother and a wife and many other things, but media, you're elegant, you do it with such grace, such elegance. And as I said earlier, when you're in the right mountain, the gracing is there. So talk to us, Carol, and tell us, what challenges have you faced on the media mountain? Now, you're a guru there now. You're a mentor. You're one we look up to now. We can come and ask. I'm about to launch, by the way, Carol, my talk show, the seasoned talk show by Salima, and it's a talk show for the ego woman. I'm going to be dealing with leading women, and I'm going to go international. And you're among the people I'm going to come to and sit at your feet and hear, how do I become a host for a talk show? How do I interview? What am I looking for? So we celebrate you because of all that, Carol. And tell us about your business, about your challenges there and how you've overcome them. Welcome, Carol Mandy. And introduce yourself and tell us about your business.
Thank you so much, Sally. It's such an honor for me and a pleasure to be here in this discussion today. It's also, an honor for me to be with Wandia Gishuru, whom I admire so much, and I wear your clothes as well. As well as Akinyi Odongo, who I know I've been to MEFA. You've done quite a number of creations for me. I believe when I was starting Sebuleni, I think the first jacket I wore on my first show was done by MEFA Creations. It was beautiful. So I really just admire, both of you women. Sally, as you've said, my background is media and business. You know me primarily because I edited True Love magazine, and
Yes.
then I took over as a publisher, running it under my own business. In the past, we've launched afrilife.com, which is a celebrity, or let me call it a lifestyle entertainment website. And also just recently ventured into a book called Pivoting in Heels. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, a little later.
Mm.
So for me, Sally, the first question, when I looked at it, in terms of the greatest challenges and
Yeah.
and the giants you find on your mountain,
Yeah.
one of the interesting things I realized is sometimes the giants, because we like to think of them as external, but a lot of times they're internal giants that we're dealing with,
Yes.
and you have to slay those internal giants before you can even get to face now your Goliath. It's all the things that happen in the secret places. It's the conversations, as Wandia alluded to, that happen in your mind. And it runs like a record overnight, and you're thinking those conversations, and you have to deal with that, and you have to slay those. And when I'm
Yes.
looking at even, just the questions that are coming in from a lot of
Yeah.
the people on here, because they're at that stage where they're wanting to launch out into something. So for me, there were, I think I would say, two big ones, internal ones. One was the fear of failure. And I don't know if anybody else has felt, but I really grappled with it. Um,
Yes.
and the question is, what if they say no? What if I do something and, what if I build it and they don't come? Big question. You have a passion for something, whether it's to launch a book or whatever it is you want to do. But what if I write it and nobody buys it? What if I
Mm.
build it and they don't?
Yeah.
Questions,
Yes.
fear of failure, and what that does. And I think some people also have the fear of success, but for me it was the fear of failure. And then egg on your face, like you've gone out and you've
Yes.
told people, I'm going to, like you've just rightly said, now I'm going to launch my talk show. And
Yes.
so there are people
I've
waiting.
announced it. Yes.
Announced it, you put it out there, and there are people waiting to see, okay, let's see what she's going to do.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
um, so, fear of failure, fear of
Yeah.
success.
Yeah.
The other thing that I also struggled with a lot, and I still find that it's not like when you conquer those giants that they entirely go away. Sometimes they come back years
Yeah.
later,
Yeah.
dressed
Yeah.
different, was self-doubt. So
Yes.
initially, your faith,
Yes.
to start, when I've been writing an article in the Sunday Nation for over 20 years now, and they tell me
Mm.
one of our longest serving columnists, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I remember the first time I was straight out of university, and there were very few women in the media, and also very few women writing articles in the newspaper back then. And actually,
Yes.
there was one female columnist, and I'm trying to remember her name, but I loved what she wrote. And when she stopped writing, she passed away. When she stopped writing, I was probably around about 26, 27.
Yeah.
Went to the editor, who was male, and said, can I have the column? There were
Yes.
older women than me who had been in the media, for longer, who were more deserving, who were better
Mm.
writers. Uh, and and he said to me, okay, so what do you want to write about? I said, I want to write about life. I just wanted to put musings, some personal musings on a weekly basis. So he said, okay, go ahead and do it. And that column has been running 20 years. And I
Yeah.
remember immediately after we started, I started writing. There was a lot of uproar, people saying, why her?
Yes.
so young. She, what does she know? There are other women who are older, more seasoned in the profession,
Yes.
who deserve a column because it's a
Yes.
big deal in
Mm.
media to get that kind of a fixture.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
and I said the reason I got it is because I asked.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we don't go beyond the fear,
Yes.
and we don't put ourselves out there. And maybe because I was naive and foolish,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
didn't imagine that, I could take the risk
Yeah.
that they could say. Today, having been in media for the last over 20 years, I can
Mm.
tell you, I mean, I'm having bigger things that I have to look at and having bigger asks, and those
Mm.
the internal giants as well. So
Yes.
we're talking about self-doubt. Do I have what
Mm.
do I have what
Mm.
to do it? Back then I
Mm.
asked myself, do I have what it takes to write a column? Then when I became editor of True Love, do I have what it takes to edit an African brand that was published and distributed across East Africa? Do I have what it takes to do that? Then when I had to take over my business, do I have what it takes? Again, so the self-doubt just keeps showing up, but in different guises or outfits.
Mm.
And what makes you slay the giant of self-doubt now, or makes me slay the giant of self-doubt now,
Mm.
as I go into Africa, because you're challenging us to go beyond, and I'll talk about that a
Yes.
little.
Yeah.
So what makes me slay that giant is the knowledge
Mm.
that a girl who started off 20 years ago and has kept it going for 20 years, who took over editing a women's magazine and did that, who ran a talk show and did that, so that
Yeah.
it's building on previous successes that
Yes.
were also based on self-doubt, because I
Yes.
did have moments of being able to say, if I was able to do that, or
Yes.
to overcome that, then I have
Yes.
what it takes now.
Mm.
And for me also, when I look at and when I think about giants, the biggest giant is Goliath. And David says to Goliath, the God that was with me, that helped me. I think he's telling his brothers
Yes.
that helped me
Mm.
slay the bear and all those other things in the private places where nobody recognized or nobody saw,
Mm.
is the same God that will be with me as I go and take on a bigger mountain, a huger mountain, as I take on Africa. It's the same God. But those are the
Mm.
two, I would say, the two big things that I dealt with.
Yes.
Another thing I think on self-doubt
Yeah.
was, am I too young? Initially, I think when I was starting,
Mm-hmm.
the question was, I was very young in the newsroom. Who do you think you are? And you also ask yourself that question. Who do you think
Mm.
you are?
You are.
You know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
now I'm finding that I'm asking a different question. I'm asking myself, am I
Yes.
too old? You
Yeah.
know, I have
Yes.
what it takes. Do I have the energy that I had
Yes.
25 years ago
Mm.
to go out and do this? So
Yeah.
there's issues to do with that. Am I too young? Am I too old?
Yeah.
I've never done this before. Then I
Yeah.
think you also alluded to it, the question on resources when Kinya
Yeah.
was making her presentation. Where will I get the resources needed? And
Mm.
most of the time when you're going up your mountain, you
Mm.
have conversation about resources. Very few people will actually
Mm.
have everything that they need. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel that way, when we judge ourselves, against other people. We kind of feel she has it all made. Look at Wandia
Mm.
Gishu,
Mm.
has it all
Yeah.
made.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
then just realizing that a lot of us, will have the question of where the resources coming from.
Yes.
And then I think, just to wrap up the whole internal challenges for me
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
counting the cost as a woman going into media or being in media, then going
Yes.
to business, raising my family, raising children. At that point,
Yes.
there was
Yes.
so many questions about
Yeah. The
um,
roles. Yeah.
yeah, how was I going to be able to do this?
Balance.
And
Yeah.
then also the very public media is a very public
Uh-huh. Mm.
business.
Mm.
And I remember when I was starting the business, I said to one of my friends, I said, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'll either do it and do it spectacular, I'll do it very well, or
Mm.
I'll either fail spectacularly, because there's
Yeah.
nothing more. You're out there. You're in with a public brand. People know your name, so it's either you have to think about both of those both of those things. Then just quickly in terms of external challenges. I think media, like many other professions, has been very male dominated. When I was launching Pivoting in Heels, the book in Heels, which I will be calling on you one day soon.
Yes. There you go.
And Sally,
Yes. Yes. Oh, there you go. Yes.
Entrepreneurs. So when I was doing this one, because here we were looking for 50 CEOs, female CEOs, and just trying to tell the stories of these women and how they managed to pivot in 2020 with the pandemic and keep their businesses afloat, make tough decisions while still offering support to their families, to their communities. Women were critical in 2020, and we wanted to tell that story. So when I was thinking about it, and when we were doing it, and I looked for women CEOs in media, I don't think I found one, which was very interesting because I found quite a number of CEOs in banking, and except entrepreneurs like myself, but there was one. There's no MD of Citizen or whatever. CEO of Citizen is a woman. Big media houses. So it was just very telling. About the fact that there is and has been an old boys club in few women at the top. So part of that coming in then was we had very few role models who was show us the way, who was going to set the way for us. And I figured that you have to just go create your own path when you can't find people who've set the way for you. So especially now, this becomes important as we go into the digital space because it's a new field. And even for all of us in business, we're asking ourselves questions of is my business digital ready? Is it? And I think Wendy also talked about it. People are selling online. Younger entrepreneurs who are selling online. Is my business that has bigger overheads ready for that? And then who are looking at this and saying, okay, it's a new space. We don't know much about we know a lot about the digital space, but it's a constantly morphing space. And so the question is, how do I go into that space? And you're going to have to create your own path. You're going to have to take that panga and just go and create your own path, make your mistakes, and figure out your way. So it was male dominated. I remember just thinking about it as being a woman in media, there was in terms of the headlines, and this is something we talk about. You could take anything, the news report or something on TV, it was the news, and the stories that you see of strength are about it's men. They're either politicians or male business leaders and all of that. And when you see a story of a woman, she's either been sexualized, so it's a story, or she's been victimized. And that used to be happening a lot back then. It has changed quite. I mean, we've made huge strides, but I'm talking about 20 coming into dealing with this mountain and recognizing that people in the room, we're talking about finding a space at the table, are looking at you very as a very sexual being. You get what? So I remember, and I'm going to share this story. It annoyed me immensely back then when it happened, but I remember going to Uganda. I think it was one of my first trips to Uganda when I was editor of True Love, and just going to put in place some measures to make sure the magazine was going to be distributed there, and all of that. And I went into a newsroom and to talk to some of the editors to see how we could collaborate on content and things like that. And so the next thing, I land back in Nairobi, and the next thing I'm being told, now I can laugh about it, is that paper, it was called the Red Pepper, which was like a gossip paper. Had this salacious headline talking about the True Love editor causes mass erections.
Oh my gosh.
It was so, it was annoying, but it was just
Yes.
part of and
Yeah.
came out was because I discovered it was being discussed by my superiors and they found it
Mm,
hilarious. But I thought to
yeah.
myself, I went here as a business person and
Mm,
all that came out of it wasn't even about what I was doing. It was about
mm,
the men and how they
yes.
responded to that.
Mm, yeah.
So I got very, very quickly very used to to that.
Yeah.
Then we see it a lot in, like I said, in how, women's issues are, portrayed or discussed. There's a lot of over sexualization or the victimization of women. So we
Yeah.
see as victims.
Yeah.
What does that do for us when we're
Mm,
reporters who look at news reports and they're either seeing women either being objectified in one end or
mm,
recognized on the other? So those are
mm,
questions. Like I said, a lot has changed over the years,
mm,
but
mm,
those are things that were there. Then also,
mm,
about no role models. I must, just, point out there
mm,
were women. There was a woman, Rose Kimoto. There were
mm.
a few, and she's always been a really big role model for me in the
Yes.
media
Yes.
space.
Mm,
So yeah, headlines are about men, and when women's stories were there, they were not necessarily given appropriate significance. Things have changed, and they're changing, but those are some of the
mm.
external.
That's right.
I have one more that I feel that's been very important for us, and that
Mm-hmm.
is the digital disruption.
Mm,
And about 4 or 5 years ago, the digital disruption, for me, I looked at it like a tsunami. So it was something like we looked at and we said, okay, the world is becoming, digital. What does that mean for media? And it was a threat to media. If you remember, even
mm,
TV stations, I think about 5 years ago, refused. Were trying to stop the onslaught of digital, and
mm, mm,
we could see it coming, and we knew it was going to come, but
mm,
obviously, completely, the tsunami hit with COVID.
mm,
So that was really for me a huge challenge in terms of being able looking at my business and tearing it down, to the complete total basics, and
mm,
and then having to re-engineer it, and that's a
mm.
process we're still going through. But I
Yes.
think really does speak to anybody who goes into business is,
Mm,
just your ability to deal with change and
mm.
um, uh,
Embrace change and transition. Yes.
in scenarios. So I think
Yeah.
those those I would say were my biggest
Yeah. Yeah.
giants.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. You've expounded very, very well. And you've hit the point. I was reading the other day that one of the largest physical gathering that has ever been done was a Benny Hinn crusade of like 6 million in 2-3 days. But digitally and media-wise, you can have 100 million in like 5 minutes. So media has such an impact so quickly and so fast. And normally media universally, when we talk of the mountains of influence, the negatives on the media is propaganda, because they hold a key to give information. So they can either give misinformation, misinterpret, incite people to wars. In fact, I think most of the wars that start and clashes, ethnic, tribal, is as a result of a media statement or something, because it's a very powerful tool, very, very powerful and very dangerous, because when it's handled wrong, it can be beautiful if it's handled properly, because it can give information to so many people so quickly and good and edify and lift and give knowledge. But when it's used wrongly, it has the effect of destroying reputations, families. You've told us about what you went through. And there is the misrepresentations as well, because if media want to give us the wrong information, they can give us or misinterpret a situation, intruding people's privacy. They can also do that. And it's too late to go back. I mean, once you've released the headline or you've gone into the news and said Sally did, by the time you come and put a little thing on page 4 to say it wasn't Sally Mahiu, it was Wandia Gishuru who they saw in that nightclub, it's too late. there are dangers there. And I think for you, our challenge is being able to fight that, being able to instill ethics and instill right information. People who will not just want to sell newspapers and sell stations and more advertising space because they're going to tell us the hype, whether or not it destroys families or it causes people to go into war and to fight, you know? So thank you for that. Self-doubt, thank you for being honest. Self-doubt, and again, insecurity. See, this has come back again. Not thinking you have what it takes to do it, and Wandia referred to that. And I think I've dealt this a lot in my book because it's after I was writing these books from what I've spoken with women over the years in my class as a lawyer, as a mentor, as a coach. And I know what can help us when it comes to these issues of self-doubt is, and what I'm speaking to all of you right now is that once you know the purpose for which you have been called, and once you know the sphere, the mountain, and the place of assignment, I think once you know those without a shadow of doubt, then you can be assured that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing at the right place, the right thing at the right place. And that should give you the courage and the confidence to fight every self-doubt. We get into self-doubt when we're not sure we're in the right mountain or whether we're called to a particular mountain. If you didn't know, hey, am I really called to media? Am I really supposed to be doing this? Then that can bring self-doubt. But I want to encourage you that once you see fruit, and knowing whether you're on the right mountain apart from thriving, and it's a fruit. You see whether you're thriving on that mountain. Do you make a positive difference? Do you actually impact people? And once you do, then that is sufficient to fight all self-doubt and insecurity, I would say to us, each one of us. Thank you, thank you. I want to go back. We're gonna do the last question very quickly before we go into question time. Kezi and Irene are waiting for us. And I'm going to actually do it. I'm gonna go through Akinyi, then back to Wandia, then finally back to you, Carol. Akinyi, you didn't tell us about your internal giants. What are your internal giants? You know, tell us about that. And then the other thing I want to bring to your attention, Akinyi, is universally your mountain, this mountain of arts and entertainment and fashion and anything creative. Some of the things it is known to negatively represent, and I need to find where I'd written that, what it negatively represents. Number one is perversion of the arts. You know, what is supposed to be beautiful. It can take values and virtues, beauty and art, and either we celebrate it or it's distorted. There's that, isn't it? Yeah. What is supposed to be beautiful art, it becomes sexual perversity, it's explicit, it's pornography, and it was supposed to be a nice piece of art or something, or fashion is supposed to be beautiful to look at. Before we know it, it's offensive, you know. So some of those are the things would challenge you to address in your mountain in terms of what are you as a Kinyi doing to overcome those real evils on that mountain of counterfeiting. There's reproduction, like Nwandia's clothes. Sometimes I see her tops everywhere. You know, Yani, I can buy it for 2 shillings, and she's already. You know, there's duplication, perversion of the arts. A nicely created design is perverted. I know there's a Ghanaian lady who started making this kind of fabric necklace. I think you all knew it. It came overnight. It was popular with different colors, and you could wear it around your neck, and it had squares, and it was a nice necklace made of fabric. And she was selling it at like 87K, I don't know, 10K, 5K. Then another lady told me, no. You just come to the Masai market, I don't know where, we'll give you for 250, 350. It had been duplicated and it looked exactly, but it was a counterfeit. So that is something known in your mountain about counterfeiting and reproducing other people's things and taking other people's art, stealing people's songs, you know? What do you think should be done about that? And what are you personally advocating to be done? And then you tell us about your internal giants.
Thank you so much, Sally. My internal giants, I think I'll just be, just agree with what Carol had just said, and also Wandia, you know, the fear. And most of the time, sometimes when you see people who are very bold and people perceive that they're so bold and they're confident, then you have no idea the fear that is inside. So someone like me personally, I would say that I do everything that I do I actually do them very afraid, very afraid. In fact, when I do something and I don't feel afraid, I'm actually doubtful about that, because I know anything that I do that I'm very afraid, that it means that it's something that is actually beyond yourself, you know. It's only God who can help you achieve it, you know. And sometimes being afraid doesn't mean that you can't do it. It's actually good because it gives the checks and balances within you as you do whatever you want to do. So, and sometimes people take fear as a negative, but I want to believe that fear sometimes makes you think and rethink and know that whatever decision I want to make, is it the right one or the wrong one? And when you know within yourself and in your spirit and you're in your mountain, you will definitely go for it afraid, you know. So that's so the fear, you know, what will people say? Sometimes you have to think, oh my God, what are people going to say? Or I'm doing something that no one has ever done before. So you're always constantly thinking about so many things around you. And especially if you're unique or you're doing something that is very different, you also want to start looking, is there anybody else who has done it? And of course, people tell you, who do you think you are? I mean, no one has done it. Why do you think you can do it? You know, and if you're not confident within yourself, then you may backtrack and actually stop doing. So I like what Carol had said at some point, that, and which has also stand by. I always say, I'd rather do it and fail than not do it, and then later I regret that I should have done it because it would have been very successful.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that balance that one has to do. I've learned to do everything afraid. In terms of perversion, you asked about perversion and one of the things that I would simply put it as, most of us are purely lazy.
Okay.
We are lazy to think.
Yes.
We are lazy to create.
Yes.
And we are lazy to engage our minds. And there's also the chasing of money, the chasing of get it quick.
Yes.
Because if I've seen your necklace today, I was just counting how many stones are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it wasn't in my mind before I saw it. And sometimes, and let's not confuse inspiration and copy, because your necklace can inspire me to create something. Yeah. But then there's a way that I see, the same way you're giving that the necklace that was seen. I was shocked as well. Then it was a beautiful piece. People used to buy it for 7,000, 8,000. And you say, right now you buy it for 250,
350, 250. Yes.
250, 350.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of these people who copy, as Wandia had indicated initially, sometimes they don't pay rent, they don't employ anybody, they don't pay their licenses, they don't pay taxes, they don't pay that. So, and you who is running your legit business and paying all these things, you can't price your necklace at 250.
No.
How much are you going to pay your employee? How much are you going to pay your rent? How much are you going to pay the electricity? How much are you going to service your machine? The amount of work and the number of people that produce that necklace is about close to 5 people. So these are some of the things that even as we push for the agenda of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, we want to ask even the people in the market, when you're buying, supporting a local designer or a local brand, or someone who is selling a juice or selling a necklace, can we think and say, how many people did this necklace?
Yes.
You know, how many people are being paid on this particular product? How much does it cost? And there are business costs to it.
Exactly.
And I think when we start asking ourselves genuine questions, then we will not be having such challenges. And then I would advise us to keep working. Let's create. Let's not just copy and paste, you know. You know, when there was a feature on someone who was selling eggs, sometimes everybody was now selling eggs, boiled eggs. You know?
Be creative,
so we don't really put our minds to creativity to create something that is able to be done. So I think those are the points that I would have on that. And again, fashion is perceived as something that is not either whether your nakedness, it looks as, you know, about womanization. I don't know how to even call it, sexism or something like that.
Yeah.
But I always ask myself the question, if you look at the older days, the old days, people used to walk naked, you know, and even with a small cover in the front, but we didn't have raping going on or people stoning anybody because you don't have an outfit. It's just because of the culture. So sometimes what we've been fed, again, as we go back to media, what have we been fed to know that it's the right thing? You know, because in the olden days, people were actually walking without clothes. and if you look at the culture, the discipline, nobody raped a small child.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah. But now we have clothes, you can wear a mini skirt or you would, but someone would say they raped you because of this. So it's not about what you have dressed on. It's about the decadence of the, the degradation of our culture and how we think and how someone has taught us to think. It's just basically going back to the setting button and say, how are we living before? You know, it's a character thing. It's something that's within us that we need to deal with, as opposed to being judgmental and you know. I mean, I can talk about this forever, but I think it goes back to us.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. Thank you, Akinyi. Now, I want us to go into a Q&A, and keep in mind that your punchlines, as your parting shots, will be what has been your greatest mistake, wrong choice or decision on your mountain. That's what you will end up with when I bring you back to actually now do your parting shots. But for now, I want us to go into the Q&A, and Kezi and Irene are ready for us. They're going to tell us. Over to you, Kezi and Irene. Take us through the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Sally. We have such a great audience, a lot of engagement, a lot of conversation going on, and a lot of participants commenting that the sharing from our panelists is absolutely relatable. And
amen.
So thank you very much. There is a quote, is it Mwende that has put, Chelsea put out a post. Beautiful quote by Marianne Williamson, that something really beautiful that we all can look at. But I want to jump straight to the questions. We have two hands up, Elizabeth and Hilda Gikera. I will bring you in shortly and will allow you to ask your question or make your comment. But for that, some questions here. And one to all the panelists, how do you locate your mountain? I will just cluster I'll cluster in a few questions.
Yes.
So is it your career path? Is it, you know, the one that is your passion or where your dreams are focused on? Generally, how do you locate your mountain? And as you answer that one, can you be called to more than one mountain? And if that is the case, how do you juggle? How do you juggle?
Yes.
That question clustering together is, did your faith have anything to do with your success? In terms of taking over your mountain, did any of you ladies, our panelists, did any of you have a spiritual strategy? That's the question right there. And the last one, maybe for this round of questions, is the assumption is that you're married and the part that your husband's played in your support. What advice would you have for a single lady without great financial muscle? And perhaps you can answer that together with the question, what was your strategy in your 20s? What mountains did you have to overcome in your 20s?
Yes. Let me make it very easy for you, Kezi. With regard to how to locate your mountain, I deliberately did not ask these ladies because I wanted us to go into but it's in the book. It's actually, there's a whole chapter on how to locate. First of all, Irene is with me here. She knows what I'm talking about, how to discover your purpose, because your purpose is tied to your mountain. Whatever you've been called to do, there's a place, your purpose has a place. So how to locate your mountain, there are principles in my books on the arrow. In fact, I call them the arrows that help you to locate your mountain or your place of purpose. And one of them is basically your purpose. First, discover what have you been called to do. Because if you feel you have anointing for business, a calling for media, a calling for fashion, then you know you need to go on the mountain of medium and the other factors like your passion, what do you love, what draws you, what do you have a burden for. Some people have a burden for certain things to be done right, like for children not to suffer. You can tell they're called into the area of releasing solutions and healing to children or the youth, or values and whatever. So I don't want us to go into that, because it's a whole chapter, and they should buy the book and read that whole chapter. And they can also go to PDI, where they have proper courses on how to discover your purpose, how to locate your mountain. Let me focus more on the issue of, then the other one they asked was, just go to the middle one. There was something else I wanted to say about the middle one before we go to the married woman. What was that other one? After, how do you put your whatever on? We can't hear.
You have answered the question, can you be called to multiple mountains?
Multiple mountains, yes, you can. And I think Akinyi was about to talk about that, where God can exhaust, you can actually accomplish everything God had wanted you to accomplish on a particular mountain, in the sense of you've become a voice. You become a voice. So beyond taking you to a higher challenge of the same mountain, you can be multi. I think I could relate to more than one mountain in my life. The mountain of family, because I'm very passionate about relationships, marriage, parenting. And at the same time, I'm in a mountain of governance. For as a lawyer, governance in terms of justice, in terms of social justice. I can also say I operate on the mountain of business and entrepreneurship, because I'm that. So you can be called to more than one mountain. And the question is the seasons. At what season in your life are you on what mountain? Or even if you're doubling them all at the same time, following the principles. You can be multi-talented and multi-gifted for more than one mountain. That's the answer to that. The other one was about whether they're married, a married woman.
Yes, so there is the one on marriage and there is the one on spiritual strategies. Did your faith
lead you there? The first one was about when you're married, how to balance it, or what is it?
It is, what advice do you give to a young person who is not married, does not have financial muscle? The assumption that this person is making is that you made it where you are because you had the support.
Or you had the support from a spouse or something to do it. So I think Akinyi is going to talk the faith one, the one about what her faith, because I have a bit of her testimony, how her faith gave her incentive to go into that mountain, yeah? Akinyi, you've understood the question?
Yes.
Okay.
I have.
Tell us about that.
Okay. So you want me to go for it?
Yes, please.
Okay. I liked, in fact, I smiled when I heard about the question, because most of the time, if you go, anybody who follows me on my social media platform, on my personal page, I rarely talk about my business. I'm always just talking about God and praying and prayer and all that. And one of the things that sometimes I get a lot of inboxes and people ask me, when do you talk about your business? You're always talking about God. And I as a believer, I believe in seek ye first the kingdom of God and all things shall be added unto you. And it doesn't mean that you are constantly praying from morning till evening and doing nothing. It basically means that you believe in the faith on doing things properly and doing them right. And you also go to work, because the same Bible says without work, you should not even eat. So it means that you have to work and also have the faith. And because sometimes there's been a perception sometimes that as a Christian, you just pray and manna will fall from heaven. No, you have to actually work. The part of work has to be there. So for me, faith is a very integral part of my business and everything that I do. And I always say that in every platform, I say, without God, I wouldn't be where I am today. And seeking God before I make any step. And sometimes people may find it, if you're not a Christian or you're not from the faith where I believe, whichever area you believe in, I want to believe you believe in a higher God, So for me, I'm very confident and very bold in my faith that whatever I do it well. And also my verse for my businesses and my life is Ecclesiastes 9:10, which say, whatsoever your hand findeth to do it with all your might, because where thou goest, there is no work. I believe that when I die today, if I didn't speak well on this platform, I would have not done anybody who is listening justice. So faith is very critical in my business, and it has played a very big part in my business, because sometimes in those moments when I'm afraid, when I'm scared, when I can't, I'm thinking, is this decision right? God, did I hear you right? And sometimes, most of the times, the decisions I make in my business and anything I do is instructed by God. Yes. And sometimes you can doubt yourself, God, did I really hear you right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then you keep doing, and somehow God has a way of walking with you and guiding you to the end. And in that journey of faith is not easy, because faith is believing on what you have not seen. So you're believing on something you don't even know whether it's going to work or not. But because you have the faith that it will work, you will move on with that faith. And believe you me, I look back for close to 20 years where I am from and where I am today. Indeed, it has been faith.
Very good. Amen. Well answered. Wandia, answer the young lady who is saying she's not married and she doesn't have the capital and the resources. How would she start even operating on her mountain?
Wow, I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer that.
Did you have resources when you started? Were you married when you started?
So the reason I answered that, I said, I'm, number one, I don't know that marriage is always the solution to necessarily giving you the resources either. You hear a lot of stories of women who have done well, and all those resources have been taken away from them and taken by their husbands and used for other things. So don't let the fact that you're single and you're not yet married necessarily make you believe that you have less. Many of us got support from family. When I started my business, it was my brother was one of the people who gave me a small loan. My mother has helped me out. So help can come from many places. And in fact, in some ways, when you're married, a lot of your attention and a lot of your time will have to go to that goal. So you may actually be in a more beneficial time of your life that you can focus a lot. And hopefully then by the time you become married, and if you want to have children, you've already established something. So everyone's circumstances are different, and it's not, don't look at somebody else and necessarily think they have it easier. I think just make the most of what you have in the moment. And there'll be benefits to being single, there'll be benefits to being married. But when you choose to get married, choose to marry the right person. Because that is probably the biggest and most important decision you'll ever make. And if you do find the right partner, it can open doors and help you in ways you can't imagine. And if you find the wrong one, it can hold you back and stress you in ways you can't imagine. So I do think it's
very well put, Wandia. And something else about that is that I think it's important for single women to actually do all that they're called to do before marriage, and even sort of like generate their resources and their investments and their wealth and their profile and their milestones even before the marriage comes, as much as possible, so that when you do meet the spouse, you're not coming, there's not a neediness or you've got your own bargaining power. You're not needy. You're not, I deal with a lot of women who've gone through abuse within marriage and all manner of horrors, and they can't leave because they're not strong. They're not financially stable and strong, or even skilled. They don't have the skills to go and do something on their own. And they stay in that horrible situation because they don't have, because they're relying on the man, which we shouldn't be. I think it's important for single women to be equipped and meet the man, come, you're both equipped, and each one of you can walk out if things don't work out without feeling reliant on the other one because of resources. The worst cases I've dealt with is where there's incest, where there's a father sexually abusing the child, his own biological, not even a stepchild, and the mother couldn't leave. So I had to take it to the police. In fact, I had to just go over her head because, nitalisha watoto na nini? Yani you're telling me to go, I go where? You see, it's a very bad situation. So I agree with what you're saying. Quickly, let's hear more.
Can I add one thing? It's something I've shared before, but I'll say it again. I married I've been married twice. Both marriages haven't worked out. So that's why when on the marriage question, I might not be the best one. But having said that, my first marriage was when I was 30. I did not even have a savings account. I had worked for 10 years, and every month I partied and spent all my money.
You bought
and
clothes.
Never saved anything.
Yes.
And then my marriage lasted only 2 years. And when it ended, I was like, my goodness, I had imagined my whole life that I'll wait until marriage is when I'll start investing, when we'll start doing everything together. And then I was there with nothing. And so my advice to younger people is definitely to start
early,
start investing, start saving, start having your financial plans. You're never too young to start.
Yes.
And don't wait. If you're lucky, you'll do it well when you'll marry the right person. But either way, it helps to have, like you're saying, have your own financial independence of some, or at least have started doing that before.
Be stable on your own. I like that. Yes, you probably shocked a lot of my women by saying you've been married twice. So there's hope. There's hope. I love that, because there's always another, because there's one webinar we're going to do on the second ride, the second chance. Not to fear
or
to get
the third, maybe.
The third, for you to be the third. And and here we associate 2 divorces or 3 marriages with Muzungus. We normally, when we read and we see movies,
No, not 3, not 3 divorces, 3 marriages.
No, you have only got 2. You had 2 marriages, but when dear, you're bold enough to say if you met the right person today, you would not fear to take another chance, or you would fear. You would go. And that's a conversation we're going to have, because there's a lot of women who are out of the first marriage, and there's this fear, like, I've written myself off, I'll never get into any other marriage. No, I think, while there's life, there is hope. And you mustn't judge one relationship with another, and there is time. And when we stop judging each other, I think a lot of women will get the courage to do these things, because I think a lot of it is society judging people. So I was saying that to the light note by saying it's a conversation that is part of, I think it's in September, where we're going to discuss that. How do I know I'm ready for a second, to go for a second marriage? And what happens if it doesn't work? All those kind of things. Thank you for sharing that one, dear. Give us another question or more.
Yes, Sally, I have a couple of questions for Carol, directly addressed to you, Carol. So Elizabeth Franklin, first of all, she celebrates you, as do many other women on this webinar. But the question is, what would you say about online magazines versus print? And I think you did allude to this, Carol. And she's asking, what do you look at when starting a magazine? We have a second question for you. This is anonymous, somebody interested in the mountain of education and specifically publishing. What are the things to look out? What are the things to look out for when going into publishing?
Okay.
Can I take 2 more for you, Carol?
Yes.
Excellent.
And watch the time, please, Kezi.
We're doing fairly okay.
All right, Kezi, that's good.
So Renee is saying she has been in media locally and also outside of the country. The question is, what would you advise, Carol, for somebody who wants to transit into starting their own creative business? We have a different Renee who is a part-time blogger, and she's been at it for 2 years. And what she wants to do is expand her content to teaching courses.
Wow.
When she did her research, I think she found out she needed certification from TVET, I believe. And the question is, how would you assist? How would you assist? Well, she has no license, but she wants to start teaching blogging. I guess maybe some advice on how to go.
That's good. Carol?
Okay, thank you so much for those questions. I know we're running out of time, so I'll just be very quick. I think what I can do is send my email address, and people can reach out to me. I'll put it up there. So what do you look at when you're starting a business, particularly a content business? So whether it's a magazine, whether it's a blog or video or whatever it is, because we want to look at this broader than just a magazine, because there's also a question on education. My big thing has always been that you must have Can you hear me? My big thing has
Yes,
always
we
been,
can.
thank you.
Yeah.
My big thing has always been that you must have quality content.
Okay.
It has to be quality content. It has to be relatable content. It has to be relevant content. So as a starting point, because today every single person, all of us on this platform, all of us speaking, Wandia, Aki, every single person, Sally, Irene, all of us are content creators.
Yes.
As long as you even have a social media account, you're creating content. So the big thing is, whether it's a magazine, whatever you want to do, it has to be quality content, it has to be relevant, it has to be relatable. So your target audience, whoever they are, they need to be able to see themselves or to draw something from that content that you're putting out. So I would say that that's just a big thing that will answer the first two questions, which is even on education, because even with you're putting content for children or schools, they have to be able to. I'm sure many of you can remember questions that were worded so wrongly, because I think when we were growing up,
Yes, yes.
English was definitely not even a second language. It was probably a third language. So trying to
Yes.
understand
Yes.
what someone has written as a question, and what they're saying, how is that presented? We read books about Paul and Peter, Jane, and I don't know who are blonde, blue-eyed, and they ate up,
Yes.
and we were eating githeri. There was no relation.
Disconnect. Yes.
There was a disconnect. So
Yeah.
how do we create content? We've so much further. I'm so glad to see Lupita has released a book and all of that. We've moved so much further. So before going for A is for alphabet, maybe A can be for something else that is within our context.
Yes. Yes.
Relatable, it has to be relevant, it has to be entertaining, it has to be, I add, inspiring, and I also add, the other thing I like to think about content is it has to transform. Just giving to the whole, it's great, you can have content, you can have social media site or whatever, but what action will people take as a result of interacting with your content? So those are some of the things I think about. And I think that also answers on the advice on starting a creative business. One thing I will say about a creative business, and maybe that alludes to the mistakes I made, was that I was so much of a creative. I didn't look at the business aspects, the business aspects of my business. I was so sold into the message, into the inspiring people, into how beautiful the magazine needs to look, and it didn't matter. So I wasn't paying keen attention onto the money side of it. So anybody who goes into the creative, especially for all of us who are creatives here, we can understand, we tend to get inspired by other ideals that that may not impress our bank manager. So but when you go into business, you really have to think about not just about doing a great job, which is one aspect of it, but you need to think about making a profit, just to ensure your business is sustainable and it can continue to meet the goals that you have for it, which is employing people and making the difference that you want to make in society. So that's a big one for anybody who goes into a creative business. The final question was on the teaching courses. So for me, I would say to Renee, I think, I would say, as you're trying to put together everything, start. The beauty about it today is you can actually even just on your online page, on your social media page, if you've got content, as you're trying to get together all the other things, you can begin to talk to people about this is how to create a blog. Today, anybody can learn about blogging by just simply just typing it into Google. So there's as a starting point, before you start beginning to get all your certification right, and it may take time, I would say begin to make yourself an expert in that field. Do short videos and share your experience as you begin to work on the technicalities. But beyond that, I think I will just put my email address just now.
That is so true, Carol, and that's what we normally do. Kezi, it's true, we normally give out the email addresses with the permission of the panelists, even from our previous webinar, so that they can, that's the whole purpose. We can't even finish all that we need to say about this conversation. And I encourage the attendees to follow up the panelists and to get the mentorship and the coaching and the advice they need. So that will be done. Kezi, you have something else?
Yeah, I want to bring in Elizabeth. If Elizabeth, you're ready to speak, your hand has been up for a while.
Okay, let us speak.
If you could just unmute Elizabeth Mweni and make your comment.
Oh, hi, Kezi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My questions have been answered by Sally. Thank you so much.
Very good.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's good, Elizabeth.
Auntie, would you like to make your comment? If you would want to speak, please, and just, yes, Auntie.
Yeah, thank you, Kezi. Thank you very much, panelists. This was very interesting, exciting topic. Though most of my questions have been answered, but I just wanted to ask about the issue of follow through. I'm one person who starts things and leaves them halfway.
Yes.
I guess it's that thing of getting excited about that multi-talented aspect of someone. And so one thing that Sally, you said is about acknowledging the seasons that you're in and
yes,
probably having to do what you need to do then. But one of the questions actually that I wanted to ask is the issue of preparation in terms of your purpose. Is there something to do with being in that preparation process for so long? You can actually see where you're headed, but you go through a lot of ups and downs, but finally it kind of God has told you what he wants you to do, but you feel that you're still in preparation for that.
Yeah.
And the seasons kind of speak to that, but
yes,
you still haven't reached where
yes,
you need to go.
Okay.
And Irene is laughing because she's my coach. And we've been
Good.
on this journey with her.
I was about to tell you, you need a coach.
Thank you,
That is,
Auntie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Rosette?
And yeah, thank you for your comments and your question. And I was just going to tell you the same thing. Go for mentorship, go for coach. The small details need need mentorship and coaching for you to get them out. And you say you're already in coaching with Irene, so you'll get all those issues. I wanted to repent for having rushed people out of that issue of how do you find your place? Kezi, was I being mean? Let me just give you a list then, because I heard myself saying buy the book, and I think that was not very kind. But let me just tell you quickly what entails, and time is running out. But I would advise you to buy the books actually, because the gist, the meat is in the books. But I don't want anybody to go to sleep today without having an idea of how to discover your mountain. And these are the pointers I've put in my book, which you need to go and read now deeply. But one of them is that, as I said before, your purpose, once you've discovered your purpose, and again, there's the chapter on how to discover your purpose in terms of your passion, in terms of your burden, in terms of your gifting and skills, in terms of your talents, the anointing in you that draws you towards a certain area. There's certain, like sometimes some people think they are not, sometimes you may be a leader. You may have the qualities and the skills of a leader, but it doesn't mean you're a leader in politics. You get me? Or a leader on the pulpit. You could be a leader in business or in media or in arts. So it's very important to then ask yourself, apart from if this is the area I'm anointed for, this is the aspect of talents and giftings and resources I can, which aspect, which part, which sphere am I to go to? There is pointers that will lead you to that. And some of these pointers will be like an area you feel a deep desire to correct or to put right, or you have a burden to see it working right. You have like politicians, you may have a desire to see good governance. You may have a desire to see justice and good leadership, and to see people getting their just and the welfare of their people, little things like that. But in terms of the place, how to discover your place, there are signs that will lead you. You'll know it's your place when you see that the people you need to help you are on that mountain. There'll be both the helpers and the killers. There'll be the haters and the ones who will embrace you. And there'll also be a gracing, there'll be a protection, there'll be some gracing, there'll be some sustenance. There'll also be the kind of celebrating. We normally say that in your place of purpose and on your mountain of influence, you will be celebrated, not tolerated. So if you want to rule us and you start vying for governorship and you see we're not tolerating you, we're just hating you, we're just not fighting you, please know that if we're not celebrating you, the chances are that's not your mountain. So go where ultimately after the challenges, after fighting the challenges, after slaying there is a definite celebration. We will acknowledge you and celebrate you. So, but the rest you'd have to read the book. Kezzy and Irene, tell me where we are at with time. Yes, yes.
We should say to everybody, you
give the people something. I think you are to give the people something as a gift.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We promise to give a copy of the book to anybody who is celebrating their birthday today.
Yeah, this book you're calling and positioning, the one we've been discussing, yeah?
Yes.
A free copy, yeah?
I don't see anybody celebrating their birthday. Do you have an anniversary? We would really love to give this book to you, but everybody asking where to get the book.
Yes.
You can get it from the Seasoned Woman Center.
Yes, they are there. There are 7 books. And
Yes.
they're available at the Seasoned Woman Center. And I think our details are on the screen. And they can also get them on Amazon, but at the Seasoned Woman Center in Lavington, and our details are on the screen.
Great. Rosette, your hand has been up. If you could just make your comment in 30 seconds and nothing more. Rosette, if you're ready.
Okay, unmute your microphone, dear.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, Kezzy. Thank you so much, ladies. And my question really relates to what Carol talked about us slaying our inner giants. And I like to call that as our inner critic. Each of us has an inner critic. Very unfortunately, sometimes the inner critic is somebody who's close to you. It may be a mother, it may be a sister, it may be even a spouse who tries to put you down. So can you please speak to us? How do you deal with your inner critic?
Okay, do we have, thank you very much. Kezzy, how much time do we have? Because I need...
And we have tons of questions.
I think what I can promise, Irene, because we made another promise, Kezzy and Irene, that we're gonna keep time. It's part of the integrity, yeah? So we're gonna keep time. So we're not going to respond to any more questions at this point, because I want the panelists to take 30 seconds to give their parting shots. But what we do promise and what we've been doing with the other webinars, we do respond, and we're going to post, if we have your contacts, we send you the answers to your questions, yeah? If we don't, we've been putting them on our website and on our Facebook page. But please, maybe text your email address. Okay, Kezzy, they can text their email addresses, then we'll respond to them. Last week, we responded to so many on addiction, by the way. There were so many questions on addiction. Dr. Jenga, Reverend Judy, and Tekla were just busy doing that. So we do respond even after the fact, isn't it, yeah? So shall we give this time, and whoever has an anniversary or a birthday but hasn't declared, it's okay, we trust you. Even if you come afterwards and you say, it was my birthday, it was my anniversary, we'll trust you and you'll get the book at the Seasoned Woman Center. So should I give the panelists a parting shot?
Yes.
30 seconds, very quick, Wandia. And the question was what is your greatest mistake or wrong choice on your mountain that you can recall, if any?
Oh my God, you know, I had a bit more than 30 seconds worth, but let me try and summarize it.
Yeah.
And I think I've thought about the mistakes that I've made as I've tried to,
yeah.
Sorry, there's some background noise. I don't know where it is. I think it's Rosette. Anyway, if someone could mute. Yeah, so my journey to trying to become more of a leader. And I feel that's where I've made a lot of mistakes. And I think those mistakes have been driven by my internal giants and my fears. I think my fear of failure as the company grew turned me into quite a difficult person to work for and to work with. I stopped, listening. I think I was so afraid that things would go badly that I was constantly on everybody's case, giving everybody a hard time, criticizing more than complimenting, more than recognizing when things were going well. I was always focused on the things that weren't going well. I was the one thinking I had all the answers, telling everybody what to do instead of listening. Instead of being the last person to speak in the room, I would often be the first. I would come into meetings saying, okay, we need to do this, we need to do that. And I think it just made me very hard to work for and to work with. I started behaving almost, I think there was a fear that I wasn't being taken seriously because I'm a woman, because I, at that point I was still maybe a little bit young. And so my leadership style was more trying to use leverage, trying to use the fact that I was the boss, almost behaving that old style like a man. And I think as women, we don't need to do that. You know what I mean? I think you convince people by inspiring them, by taking their ideas into account, by listening, by nurturing, by, so I lost a lot of sight of that. And I think I was not happy, and I made a lot of other people unhappy as well. Maybe the last two things I would say is I also, maybe fear of not being liked made me say, I was afraid to say no to opportunities, when people are like, and what you realize is that as up the ladder a little bit, more and more people want a piece of you, want your time, and that's okay, but you can't be everything to everybody. And so I think learning when to say yes, when to say no, so that you're and distracting yourself, you have to focus, so I think being very clear about where best you can help, where best you can serve is really important. And the last one, I think I was very afraid to ask for help. I think, and maybe it's also from this need to prove that you can do it, that you can be independent. Maybe you're also afraid that if you ask, some people will let you down. So it's taken me a while to learn to ask for help. I think it's a mistake to always try and figure it out. Yeah, so those are the ones I'd want to share. There are many, many more. I think we constantly make mistakes, but hopefully we learn from them. And thank you all. I've loved being on this panel, Sally. Thank you and on your many mountains. Thank you for blessing us with your gifts. Thank you. Sally, you're on mute.
Unmute, Sally.
Okay, thank you, Wandia. I thank you for those last 2 points about your mistakes. They are valid. I know a lot of us can identify with that. I'm thinking of leadership and thinking, yeah, I hear you, I understand. But we learn from our mistakes, as you say. So, Akinyi, can you tell us, as your parting shot, your worst mistake or choice while on your mountain or decision?
Thank you so much, Sally. As I would say, there are very many mistakes and that I've been able to make, and fears, and I really look at them as, I look back and looking at them as lessons that I was actually learning. The fear of failure, sometimes you will fail on some areas, and then you feel like, okay, is it really something that I was supposed to do? And then also I have learned that to be more considerate to people, because one of the things that I learned is that people are hurting out here. And when you're dealing with people, you need to be very, very considerate on how you deal with them. Sometimes I say hurting people hurt people. And especially when you're somebody who would want to be, to be told thank you all the time, or to be told we appreciate what you, then you don't get that from people, then you start thinking, oh, they're very bad people, Yet it is just something inside that everybody is dealing with. So I've learned that most people, or a lot of us, we all have some demons that we are fighting, or some things that we are fighting within us. And learning just to meet people and accept them as they are, which was, you know, sometimes you want, if you're someone who likes things done, want it to be like this, you know. So if you meet people or you work with people who can't do things in a particular way, you start judging them that they are bad. But I've come to learn that people are different and you're not the same as other people. And I've been to PDI, and I've learned also done my list and know my strength and my weaknesses.
Yes.
And knowing also how to choose a team we are supposed to work with. So I know the particular characters that I don't work with very well. So I try to avoid so that then I try, and even as you employ people, you get the other character that is able to merge with just to make you successful. So those are lessons that I've learned later after making a lot of mistakes.
Wow, very good. Thank you, Akinyi. Carol, your worst mistakes, choices?
I just want to say that I've made all the mistakes Wandia has made and Akinyi has made. And
yes, very good, yeah.
One big one for me was not going back to school. I had an opportunity to actually go back to school.
Okay.
Do it. I think again because of the balancing children, you know, working in media, doing a TV show, and you know. But I look back, and for me, I kind of feel it's one thing I actually should have done back then. But what I've done is I've then, you know, tried to take courses, you know, business education. I talked about not taking financial money seriously.
And you're creative.
And that's something that I'm trying to work out and go back. I would encourage anyone here is don't feel that you must have all the answers, and it's in interacting that you're able to continue sharpening. My internet is a bit unstable. You're able to continue sharpening the saw.
Harnessing the gifts, Yeah,
and then the final one is trusting too much. I think maybe Akinyi and Wandia must have felt this one. Particularly for me, I've had situations where I've lost money in the business, again, because of trusting too much. And so somebody something which I think is very important. Obviously, you create systems and all of that, but she said something that I thought was very important, which was, she said, trust, but always verify. So follow, don't assume that, you know, it's a big concern for people in business. It's just whether you're losing commodities, you're losing money through fraud, or even just the fact that you employ people and they work, you know, 10% of the time or whatever. So those are some of the things that
Thank you, Carol. So anything else, ladies, Irene, Kezi, anything else, or shall I wind up with a word of prayer? I thank you, panelists. Thank you. I know we can never fit. This conversation could go on for hours. It's so rich. It's so wealthy. There's so much to share. And I've learned a lot personally from the three of you panelists. And I'm sure our attendees have also learned a lot. And we promise to answer the questions. We will do our best to follow up, even post them in our website and in our Facebook. But for now, we promise to end on time. So I just want to wind up with a word of prayer. Thank you very much, Carol, Mandy. Thank you, Wandia of Vivo. Kezi and Irene were saying you didn't introduce yourself, but you are of Vivo, isn't it? Co-founder of Vivo. And you talked about Zetu. Wandia.
Yeah, so Shop Zetu is a fashion e-commerce marketplace. It's a platform where we sell our own brands, but we also sell many other wonderful, wonderful brands. So if you want to go to one place and see a lot of different fashion, beauty, accessory brands, please visit shopzetu.com.
Very good. Very good. I hadn't been there. Thank you so much. So let's wind up with a word of prayer. Thank you for joining us, every one of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Precious Father, Jehovah God Almighty, thank you for giving us this opportunity, dear Lord, to speak together, to interact together, to impart knowledge and wisdom and guidance and direction, dear Lord. We thank you because all wisdom and all understanding comes from you, dear Lord. So we pray for each and every one of us. Thank you for our panelists. Thank you for these mighty voices on these mountains of influence, dear Lord. Thank you for the inroads they are making. Thank you for the positive change. Thank you because they are making things better for other women who will come up later, Lord, on those mountains, dear Father. And even for the men and the young men and the older men, dear Father, we thank you that these women are an example of those who can speak on behalf and who can clear the giants for others, dear Father. Thank you, Jehovah, for Kezzy and Irene. Thank you for the support, even here in the office. We thank you, Father, for the books. And we pray that those who will need the books, Father, you'll guide them and direct them, Father, to be impacted, to come and buy them and get impacted. Bless every single one of us, protect us and shield us. We pray this, believing and trusting in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen and amen. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
we say goodbye to you. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, attendees. All the best. See you next time. See you next time. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Maybe before we close, Mercy, please send me your email address. Mercy, our birthday girl. Just drop your email address before you leave so that we make good on our promise. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's good. Yeah, put me on video.